Spanish has a couple of consonants that we don't technically have in English. It doesn't look like it. It's not like you're looking at the alphabet and you're seeing something like this. Okay? There are letters that exist in other languages in alphabets that we don't have in our alphabet. We don't have anything like that where the whole symbol is different in Spanish. But the most common one you're going to think of is what we call the ñ. This is not an N with an accent mark. It is not an N with an accent mark. An N with an accent mark would look like this. And that's an accent mark. This is what's called a tilde. Okay? And this is not an N with a tilde. This is what we call ñ. It's its own letter. If I'm writing out the alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, okay, I'm going to go L, M, N, then that letter, then we're going to keep going. L, A, M, A, N, A, Ñ, O, P, Q, etc. Okay, so this is called ñ, and you can't forget about it. You can't leave it off. It really does matter. Okay? So we have the word año. We have the word señor. We have the word español. These are all words that you guys use on the first day of Spanish class this year. ¿Cuántos años tienes? How many years do you have? How old are you? Señor, sir or mister. Español, Spanish. You know, the class that we're studying right now, the subject, the language that we're studying right now. The spelling of these things matter. If you drop that tilde, this becomes ano, which is kind of a gross word. I'm not going to talk about what it means right now. Ano, don't use that word. This becomes senor. Senor, most people probably won't even recognize your meaning to say senor if you say senor. Doesn't sound like the word. It's too different. Español, wrong. It's español, not español. But right now, this is senor and español. Okay? We don't want senor and español. Senor bien enseña español. Okay, then we have a verb. Enseña, teaches. So I can make this all into a sentence. Señor bien enseña español. Mr. Fian teaches Spanish. Teaches. This is the verb enseñar, to teach. Okay, that tilde, that mark, matters. It's not just spelling. It's not just something where you can just leave a letter off and people still understand you. This is crucial. This is a part of the word. If it's not there, it's not the word. In Spanish, if you get the spelling wrong, often it becomes a different word, and it's important to make sure you get it right, so you're saying what you mean. The two other letters, the two other consonants that we have in Spanish that we don't have in English, don't seem like they're their own letters, okay? But they really are. One is called R. R. This is what you might call the double R. If you have one R, it's called R. If you have two R's in a row, it's called R. Okay, what's the difference? This letter itself, the tip of your tongue is only going to flap once when you say the letter. Okay, so if I just put an E on the beginning of and end of it, it makes it easy for me to pronounce. This is R, R, and you can hear in the way I'm saying it, R, that the tip of my tongue just goes boop once. If you try to say it out loud, R, 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 R. Please be practicing it. Please be trying in your room, wherever you are. R, R. It's not R. Okay? Sometimes people get really overboard when they see R's in Spanish and they try to. Okay? You're not starting a motorcycle. You're not a purring cat. Okay? Just say the sound. R. If that seems like you can't do it, if you're like, no, I can't do that. My tongue doesn't move that way. I guarantee you it does. Say the word edit in English. Like you need to edit your paper. It's the exact same sound. Edit. Right? You're not saying edit. Nobody says edit. You're not really fully pronouncing the D there. You're saying it with the tip of the tongue flapping. Ere, edit. Same sound. Okay? So the one R is an ere. The double R is an erre. This one's a little bit more challenging for English speakers, for native English speakers. Erre, because we don't make that sound in English. Okay? Rrr. Okay, this one is called a trill. This one is a flap. This is a trill. Those are technical words. That's what's being done by the tip of your tongue when you're speaking. Ere, if you say that out loud, the tip of your tongue should just flick once against the roof of your mouth, like in the word edit. Erre, okay, the tip of your tongue should flicker against the top of your mouth. It should happen 2 or 3 times. Erre, It's not erre. Okay, we're not doing that. Again, we're not starting a motorcycle. We're not purring like a cat. Okay, but ere, erre, ere, erre. You can practice it with an English phrase. Again, we have edit for this. For erre, if you practice the phrase ed, as in the name, ed, short for Eddie or Edward, ed, edited it, like, who edited this paper? This is a terrible paper. Who edited it? Ed edited it. That's a bit of a tongue twister to say in English. Ed edited it. But if you say it a little bit faster, and you force yourself to say it, Ed edited 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 it. The faster you do that and the more you do it, the more you'll notice the tip of your tongue getting a little bit tingly. Okay? If you're doing it correctly, the tip of your tongue should get a little bit tingly because you're forcing it to do something that it doesn't normally do. Okay? It's like an exercise. Okay? If you go out and you do yoga, you're going to do something that your body doesn't normally do. So when you're learning Spanish, you're going to do something with your mouth, with your tongue, that it doesn't normally do when you speak. So when you say ed edited it, ed edited it, ed edited it, ed edited it, loosen up your tongue, let it move. Ed edited it, ed edited it, ed edited it, ed edited it. You should be able to get there. Eventually you'll get there. The more you practice it, the better you'll get. Ere, erre. Ere, erre. So the single R inside of a word, the tip of your tongue should flap once. Ere. The double R inside of a word, the tip of your tongue should trill. Ere. If the R is at the beginning of a word, like in the name Roman, it's going to make this sound. Roman, when it's at the beginning. You're never going to have a double R at the beginning of a word, but if a word starts with an R, it's going to make that sound. The other double consonant that we have in Spanish that, again, is considered its own letter is what we call the double L. In English, we would say the double L. In Spanish, it's called the elle or eye or eje, depending upon where the person who's teaching you is from. Okay? This is one that will change a little bit depending on the dialect that people are speaking in. If people are from Spain, if people are from Mexico, if people are from different regions of Mexico, if people are from Argentina, they might pronounce this a little bit differently. So sometimes you'll hear this as y, that's the most common, y. Okay? It might also be pronounced as j or even sh, depending on where the speaker is coming from. But the most common is y. So in me llamo, what does this mean? I call myself. Go ahead and say it with your name. Me llamo Calvin. Okay? Y, llamo. Llamo. This is not lamo. This is not lamo. Okay, in English, we talk about the animal, the llama. This animal is actually from Peru, a Spanish-speaking country. It's from there originally. If you watched Emperor's New Groove, you know that llamas come from Peru. Okay, llama is how we say it in Spanish. La llama. So if you have a llama, you could say mi llama, my llama, se llama. It looks like my llama's a llama. Okay, mi llama, se llama. Yamitza. I knew a girl named this in Panama. Mi llama se llama Yamitza. Yama, 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 yama. Ya, ya, ya. Okay, the double L. Oops. The double L makes the y sound. Mi llama se llama Yamitza. Again, if somebody's from Argentina or certain regions of Mexico, other places in South America, they might say this as j or sh. So they would pronounce it like mi llama se llama Yamitza. Or mi llama se llama Shamitza. Kind of over-exaggerating that, but you'll notice that some people will say things a little bit differently. People who will say that will also say the word yo that way. Yo. instead of yo. What does this mean? Yo, I. A couple more consonants we need to consider in Spanish are the X and the J. X is kind of an odd one in English too. We don't use it very much. Okay, if you're like working with a little kid and you're trying to think of examples for every letter, the one we tend to go to with this is X-ray. Okay, so it's not even really used at the beginning of a word very much. It's used a little bit more in a word, like in a fax. Not that we use that anymore, except like das fax, which is not how that's actually spelled. Okay, but the X and the J in Spanish both make a h sound. H. Not like an H, because it's more coming from the back of your throat. There's a little bit of a difference between the two. Okay, this one's a little bit softer. This one's a little bit harsher. It's more out of the back of your throat. So this is the Spanish word for this is called jota, 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 jota. In Spanish, this is called. Oops, I better get in front of it. This is called X, X, which is funny that it doesn't actually use the X in the word for the X. But this is X, this is jota, and this is pronounced. It's more out of the back of your throat. This is not super common in Spanish. This is used a little bit more. One of the most common examples of this is the name Don Quixote. Don Quixote. Don Quixote was a book written hundreds of years ago, very popular, very common, very well known in Spain. They still talk about it and use it a lot today. We're not going to talk about that in class right now, though. Later on we will. This can be spelled two different ways. Don Quixote, Don Quixote. Okay? So that word, that letter right there is very similar to the J. The J and the X are very similar. X and Jota. Okay? Both of them, the way you pronounce it, if you pronounce them both as Jota, Don Quixote, Don Quixote, you're going to be fine on that. Sometimes it comes at the end of a word, sometimes at the beginning, sometimes inside. It varies. Like in the Spanish word, oops. In the Spanish word reloj, reloj, reloj. You hear it at the end there. Reloj. You can't just make it disappear. It's not reloj. It's reloj. Okay, what is this? Mi reloj. Watch. Or it can be a clock on a wall. El reloj. Okay, the clock. Reloj. And then another consonant you should be aware of is the K. We talked about the K a little bit when we talked about the C. In the C, the hard C, ka, ke, ki, ko, ku, makes the K sound, and I use the K to represent that sound. Okay, but we're not going to replace the C with a K. The K in Spanish is only used in what we call imported words. Okay, what does imported mean? Imported means it comes from another country. In the case of a language, it comes from another language. Okay, so where you hear the word import a lot, sometimes you see it on like a drink menu, sometimes you see it with cars. Okay, imported cars tend to cost a lot more, especially to fix, than domestic cars. Imported, designed and built in another country. Domestic, built here, maybe, for sure designed here. Okay, so like imported cars are like BMWs, Saab, Fiat, things like that are made in another country completely. So in Spanish, imported words are going to include the K. Okay, so these are words that are they're often cognates. They're often words that show up in English and Spanish because we borrow from the same languages. A very common one is koala. Koala. That spelling does not have to change for Spanish, and the pronunciation is basically the same. Koala in English, koala in Spanish. Koala. Yes, say both times. It's not It's not una koala. Una koala. No, una koala. Okay. We also have the word kilo, which is a prefix, really. Okay. Kilogram, kilometro. Okay. So you'll see this in measurement, in metric. Okay. Another one is the kimono, the traditional Japanese dress. Kimono, koala, kilometro. So the letter K is not used for natural Spanish words. Okay, it's rarely used in names. If it's used in a name of a person from a Spanish-speaking country, it's typically an imported name like You might see Kevin as a name. Kevin, they would say. This is not a Mexican name or a Guatemalan name, but sometimes they'll use a name from another country, just like we do sometimes here.